Welcome, truth-hungry souls and tireless romantics, to the sanctuary of whispers and revelations. Welcome to Whispers of Turkish Stars. Tonight we walk a tightrope between revelry and vanishing, between sparkling laughter and the kind of silence that rattles the bones. If you think you've already witnessed everything the Turkish spotlight can conjure, steady your heart. What follows is equal parts psychological riddle and love story set on the brink. Before we slip into the maze, honor our circle with a small ritual of loyalty. Subscribe, strike the bell so no echo escapes you, and if you wish to power our investigations, the join button is yours. Extra scenes, early scoops, and a front row seat to the unsayable. One click for you, a vault of truth for us. Ready to chase the enigma of the year? It was supposed to be the crown jewel of celebrations. A night destined to be engraved in the columns of memory as the festival of beauty, rhythm, and ease. Sinem's birthday arrived in a cascade of lights and perfume, curated down to the last petals. Friends, colleagues, the industry's inner circle, all bathed in glamour that shimmered like a fairy tale come to life. Glasses chimed like tiny bells, music kissed every corner of the room, and photographers carved out bright constellations with their flashes. Everything gleamed with promise. Yet, threaded through the gold, there was a a hum that gathered around two people and refused to dissipate. Ozan Baba tried to keep his presence low, as though guarding a fragile flame, but energy has its own gravity. Each glance between him and Sinem was a magnet, brief but blazing. Each moment they drifted toward one another felt less like chance and more like orbit. Nothing was spoken outright, yet their nearness wrote its own script. After weeks of storms, clandestine rendezvous, frictions with loved ones, a sudden wave of exhaustion that sent Sinem to rest under medical supervision, this party felt like a wordless vow: we're still here. The room understood it before a single sentence was uttered. And then the lights died down. The laughter faded. The afterglow thinned into dawn. What should have been the first step into a renewed public chapter became, in a few invisible hours, the prologue to the most troubling riddle of the season. Morning found Turkey with an ache in its chest, a sense of absence clinging to the air. The contrast was brutal, the roar of festivity muting into a silence that refused to explain itself. Initial fragments trickled in. Photographers, committed as sentries outside the venue, captured the last moments of ordinary life. Sinem, tired but luminous, hugging friends before slipping into the night. Ozan, leaving by a quieter corridor with the focus of a man following a drawn map. After that, nothing. Neither of them returned to their residences, now transformed into well-guarded shells pelted by questions. They didn't drift through their usual cafes. No quick coffees. No smiling snapshots. No chance sightings to soothe buzzing nerves. Then came the digital desert. In a time when your heartbeat is measured by your stories and your presence by your posts, their social silence roared like a siren. No gratitude for the party. No late-night candids. Not even a teasing caption. Calls slid straight into the void. Messaging alerts went unanswered. Ozan and Sinem had simply slipped off the grid, as though a hatch had opened beneath them and closed just as quietly. With that, speculation unfurled like wildfire. Some insisted that this was not a crisis but salvation, a determined retreat from pressure that had already frayed nerves and health. Others painted Ozan as a steadfast guardian, shepherding the woman he loves away from a frenzy that can swallow even the strongest. There were whispers about the need to rebuild from bedrock, to protect what still lived between them from the world's corrosive commentary. And of course, a legion of dreamers suggested this vanishing act was a decisive step toward a future sheltered from applause and blame alike. Dear confidants of Whispers of Turkish Stars, pause and ask yourself, if the glare turns your pulse into public property, is disappearing an act of fear or the purest courage? Tell us in the comments. Your readings of the human heart are our compass. If you feel the pull of this tale, seal it with a like and join us. Your fire keeps our lantern lit. What twists this into investigative territory is not just their absence, but the choir of silence singing around them. Typically, when speculation sharpens to a point, representatives rush in with careful lines to soften the edges. Not this time. What we found was a curtain stitched shut. Those reachable offered phrases that skittered away from meaning. Little answers. No clarity. Friends who were usually happily talkative looked past their names as though they were smoke, or crafted surprise too brittle to convince anyone. In that vacuum, fans and journalists sharpened their focus into magnifying glasses. Old images were rifled through, reflections studied for clues, flight data combed like beaches for glints of gold. And then, shards of something concrete began to surface, small but gleaming. An anonymous voice from close to Sinem's circle swore that she never went back to her place after the candles were blown out. Her driver, they said, took a route that avoids the city's familiar arteries, moving toward a destination not marked on the social map. At roughly the same hour, Ozan's car was seen coasting along the shoreline highway, a road that bends past secluded villas and fortified retreats where famous names slip off the face of the earth without going anywhere at all. The clamor turned to a roar when a whisper from Istanbul's private airport seeped out. A staffer, speaking in careful shadows, described a jet lifting at around 4:30 a.m. Wolf time, the hour when escapes happen and secrets board on light feet. The passengers, they said, were two hooded figures whose height and movement matched our missing pair too precisely to ignore. The arrangements were last minute, wrapped in protocols so tight they felt almost military. From that instant, one narrative soared, a carefully plotted exodus, designed by Ozan with the precision of a tactician. A haven somewhere beyond the lattice of cameras, where words can stretch and breathe, where apologies aren't overheard by 100 strangers, and where the strain that buckled Sinem's days can be released without a witness. Picture it, the plane breaking free of the Istanbul skyline as the night exhales, carrying them toward a place where they are simply two people, not headlines, not brand names, not symbols forced to stand in for everyone's hopes. After the stolen kisses, after the sharp words, after a family's doubts and a flash of temper at the press, stepping away together looks like the only path that doesn't destroy what remains. But there is a somber counter-theory, one we cannot dismiss at Whispers of Turkish Stars. Some insiders suggest that what looks like a holiday could be a prescription. Europe is peppered with discreet centers dedicated to emotional restoration, places where the weights that media places on your chest are gently lifted, where you learn how to carry fame without letting it carry you. If Sinem needs focused care, perhaps Ozan chose to be at her side not as co-star, not as public partner, but as anchor. Then came the breadcrumbs, odd, soft messages from friends, coated with comfort and distance. Words like "we're fine. We just need time," paired with photographs of lakes at dusk or sunlight sliding through trees. No tags. No names. Only the echo of reassurance folded in a plea, "let them be." Such posts felt less like accidents and more like a signal, an agreed-upon way to tell the world they are safe without opening any doors. One detail was almost buried beneath the noise, but it refuses to stop humming. In all the years they've been thrust forward, Ozan and Sinem have never slipped away with this level of synchronized quiet. This is not the absence of commentary, it is commentary shaped into absence. It says, something decisive is unfolding. It says, the next move matters too much for an audience. When the chorus gets too loud, sometimes the only way to hear the melody of love is to step behind a soundproof wall. And while the country crowds its bulletin boards with theories, secret nuptials, a spiritual retreat, or a careful undoing of old wounds, the only reliable point on our map is this: Ozanic Baba and Sinem Unsal did not vanish by accident. Doors were locked. Curtains were drawn. This chapter is being written with the ink of privacy. Perhaps we'll see them tomorrow, grinning into a sunlit selfie with a glint of gold on their hands. Perhaps we won't glimpse them for a month, and when we do, their eyes will be clear in a way that only rest can deliver. Or perhaps this is the prologue to a life reorganized beyond applause, a quiet that protects rather than punishes. We at Whispers of Turkish Stars stand watch, lamps trimmed, as steady as night guardians waiting for the softest footstep on the path. If there is movement in that hidden refuge, whether the triumph of lovers rebuilding what the world chipped at, or the sober work of tending a deep bruise, we'll trace it by the smallest sign. Tell us your reckoning. Is this the defiant victory of intimacy, or the patient mending of a heart stretched too thin? Share your thoughts below. This community lives on your insight and your daring theories. From Whispers of Turkish Stars, that is where we leave you for now. Keep your senses open, because the fiercest truths often speak in whispers. Until the next revelation.